So previously we've looked at inserting images and some basic CSS styling that we can resize and position our images. But what if we wanted to do a little bit more? And you say, well, what types of more things can we do? Well, it turns out that while an image is very graphic by itself, it has a lot of ability to be controlled and manipulated with CSS. Now, these CSS rules are actually capable of being done on other places. We haven't done them as much because in a lot of cases, it doesn't make as much sense. Let's see what we mean by example. So here I have my HTML page from before, and you see our thumbnail. Now, a pretty common thing to do in a thumbnail is nowadays to make it circular. You might go, well, okay, but that's a square image. Do I have to go into a program like Photoshop or something like that in order to make a circular image? And the answer is actually no. So let's show you how we're going to do this really, really simply with this thumbnail image. I'm going to go into my CSS and I'm going to add one line under my thumbnail. That's going to be border radius. And I can specify either an exact amount. So for example, I could say 25 pixels. And if I reload that, you'll notice that my corners are now nice and rounded. Or I could specify a percent. And so if I say 25% and reload it, you'll notice that it's rounded even more. Well, that might get you thinking, well, what would it take to fully round this? Because I'm not having to do any manipulation of my image at all. It's all being done in CSS. Well, it's real simple. I'm going to come over here and specify 50%. And now I have a fully rounded image when I reload it. So this is a nice little thing. It's simple, it's easy, and it's something that you see at a lot of different websites. Now, preferably, your size image will be square if you want a circle, and it will be rectangular if you want an oval. So just keep that in mind. We can't force it to be a circle unless our image itself is a circle. But let's look at some other things that we can do. We've already seen the ability to float an image to the left or to the right. Well, I want to go in and create a slight what we might call a Polaroid effect. And you might think, well, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to do that with a new class. And for those of you who don't remember Polaroid cameras, they were kind of a neat camera back in the day. You could take a picture and out would come a little photo and it would develop right there for you. This is before the days of digital cameras, obviously. And so what was nice about it was the fact that you didn't have to send off your film to be developed. You could have a picture in about 60 seconds. Compare that to sometimes a week or 2 weeks when you send it off, you go to the store and send it off. It was a huge improvement. And what was also interesting is they had a big, thick white border around the top, left, and right, and a bigger one even at the bottom. So we're going to kind of duplicate that effect. There's a couple of ways that we can do this. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to define a background color. You might be thinking, well, why are you going to do a background color? Well, this is what I'm going to make as my antique white because it's a pretty white, but it's just off-white enough. I could also possibly try this Alice blue because it might have been a little bit more of a blue tinge. Most people wouldn't recognize it. Or you know what? I might even do that beige. Now I'm going to add a slight border. And I'm not going to do much. I'm just going to do black, 1 pixel, and solid. Come back to my images, and instead of doing it as a thumbnail class, I'm going to do left and Polaroid. When I reload this, you can see I have my instant little border, but you don't see the background color. And the reason why is we need to give a little bit of padding. An image that does not have a transparency, you're not going to see the background. So what I'm going to do is come back to my CSS and add a padding. And I'm just going to give it 10 pixels. Now when I reload, you can see I have a 10 pixel little border. You might go, oh, okay, I kind of see what's going on here. This is my background. I can see that. It's that beige color. I probably do want to tweak this just a little bit more. That's okay. But it's right now all even on all my sides. And if you remember correctly, I said that the border at the bottom was much thicker. So what I'm going to do is a little bit of a shortcut. I have padding 10 pixels, and that put 10 pixels on all my sides. But I could also do 10 pixels, which is my top. And if I do 10 pixels, that's going to be my right. And if I add 4 different sizes, the next one's going to be my bottom. And so I'll say 40 pixels, and then once again, 10 pixels. If I reload this, this is appearing to be much more of that color that I would expect. It's got the thin border that's very clearly still visible, and then a thicker border all the way around. I might need to do some adjustments and specify that it's maybe 50 pixels and maybe adjust some of the others. With my color, I'm going to change out that beige because it wasn't quite white enough, and I'm going to do something like F5, F5, F5. This gives it a much whiter style color, which is going to be more reminiscent of that Polaroid. So it's kind of an interesting and simple effect that we can apply pretty easily. Now, this is not the only effect that we can do to help it look like an image, because right now it's plastered in on it. So my next property I'm going to set is going to be a box shadow, and that's just going to create a slight raising a type effect to get this picture so it doesn't look like it's built into the page, it's sitting on top of it. Now for my box shadow, I need to give it several different values. Left and right offset, up and down offset, and then the color. I also have an optional blur. So we need to give these in the right order. So I'm going to simply specify 7 pixels by 7 pixels, just so it's a little bit down and to the right. And then I'm going to do a very dark gray. Pound 333 is a shortcut of 333333, which of course is a very, very dark gray. If I come in here and reload this, you'll notice that I have this shadow. It is very dark and it's very harsh. A lot of times you don't see shadows this harsh. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tweak this just a little bit and give it a 5 pixel blur. Now when I give a 5 pixel blur, you notice that now my edges are just a little bit blurred. It's not a harsh shadow. It works a lot closer. You might be thinking, well, boy, that shadow does appear to be, awful close to that text. It's a little hard to see, and we can adjust that, of course. So I'm going to come over here and make this shadow a little bit less. It's just enough that now it feels like it's just sitting slightly on top of it. Gives it just that slight three-dimensional feel. And that's all we were really looking for. There's other properties that you can put in with your box shadow, but this is just an example. So you've seen how we can put borders around things, add padding, set background colors, and even a box shadow. Those are things that you don't typically do with text. But with an image, there's a lot of reasons to potentially do it. And so this provides some nice, simple ways. Now, in our next video, I do want to show you real quickly how we can use images for background to really spruce up and change what our background looks like.